Yes, sir. It's good to see you, buddy. It's been a while,
dude. It's years.
Yeah, I mean, we did the first podcast like 3 years ago. I was looking back. I listened to a little bit of it, and I was like, "Have I seen him since then?" I'm not even sure I've seen you.
I don't think that you have, because I mean, we're both kind of all over the place. So.
Yeah, man, it's a bummer though. Sometimes it's like you talk to somebody on the show or just have a meet up or a hang or whatever. And in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm going to hang out with this guy a lot, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Where are you living now?
I'm out in DC. So it's like,
oh, so you're still in DC. I remember you had like just moved, I think.
I think I was just about to, because we did the first podcast. I remember in San Diego, where I was living at the time. I think you were there doing a show. And we did it at your hotel. At least I think that's right.
Yeah, I was at the hotel. It was at LED anniversary 2019.
Okay.
Yeah,
there it is.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you were just about to move. That makes sense now.
Yeah, I think we even talked about it on the podcast. But man, and you, I assume, are still out in LA?
Yeah, I'm in Studio City. I think at that point, I had literally moved days prior. I literally moved days prior. So I'm at a different place now. I had moved in with roommates originally. Right. And now this is my apartment that I live with my girlfriend. So that's kind of been the main change, is just I moved to LA. I met somebody who, her name is Jess, and she's like majorly involved on every portion of my project and helps with so much. She does marketing at labels. So she's already in the industry.
Right.
And she's like, dude, just changed my life. Genuinely, it's crazy.
Dude, I mean, that's so nice to hear, man. There's a lot in that, because I think when we did the first podcast, we were talking about, for some reason, we spent a long time talking about how you had like had a breakup and you were single, but you like being with somebody, and it's hard to make relationships in this business, and you had just moved to a new place and all of that, man. So just off of that, I mean, that's amazing that you found somebody who's awesome and you're happy and all that, man. That's great to hear.
Yeah, near immediately, literally like a month later from that podcast is when I had met her, and it was very just natural because she just cared, and since she was already in the industry, it was a lot easier because it's kind of a situation of like, this person's not, here to benefit off of anything that I'm doing, or even the other way around. Like, we're just both like mutuals in the industry that had worked not together, but side by side doing similar things. Then it just kind of developed into something really cool. And now I'm very thankful because honestly, after that podcast, man, my career was kind of taking a weird dip. Things kind of went down for a bit.
We got to talk about it, man. Yeah, I was sort of unaware to a certain extent, and I want to talk a lot about it. But
absolutely.
Actually, before we even dive into the career thing, the other thing I wanted to say on relationships is that it's also kind of amazing that you found someone where you can work together, or at least collaborate, share ideas about your career in the industry together without it kind of getting in the way of the relationship. You know what I mean? Because I think that's a big thing where, you see people in relationships like start working with their partners, or they're in the same fields. And I think kind of the wires can get crossed sometimes. And it's hard to turn off. Like, are we romantic right now, or are we business right now? And it sounds like you've been able to navigate that too, which is great, man.
Yeah, I feel like it's just for us. I think it's always both at all times. If anything, it's just constant. Like we're best friends that are also romantic, because I'm constantly trying to work on stuff, and she works remote and I work here if I'm not on the road. So it's just kind of constantly, if I need help with something, then she's there to help on it immediately. And she's literally like, man, just like on the terms of, because she comes up with so many cool ideas, like all the cool like marketing things that I do, it's all just out of her brain. Man. And every decision that I make when it's like big picture, long-term stuff, like whenever it's a conversation with my manager, Pat, my new manager, Pat, since we last spoke.
Right. Is that Pat Ward?
It's Pat Ward. Yep.
Yeah, I know him, man. Shout out to Pat.
Yeah. Good. Shout out to Pat. Great guy. It's like us three, basically, always just like figuring it out. So she's like very much part of the team. It's like, she's vital to the team.
That's amazing, man. And you mentioned she works in music. Can we say what she does? I'm just curious.
Oh yeah. She works at Dimmock, Steve Aoki's label. She's a marketing coordinator over there, and then she also works in marketing and label stuff at Subsidia as well.
Okay, nice, man.
Yeah, Excisions label.
Yeah, that's perfect, dude. It makes me happy to see it and to hear you all settled out there. It's funny because I was listening back to the first podcast we did last time. And it's really good. I had forgotten like how much we were laughing. It's like really funny. But, but I had also forgotten like just how young you sound. Like it was a very innocent podcast. You know?
Yeah.
Because like you just hadn't really like been corrupted yet.
I haven't been just turned for the worse and chewed up and spit out by the industry yet.
Right.
I was more fresh. I was like, what is this?
Which I guess brings us back to that career dip we were talking about, which is interesting, man. Because I didn't know exactly what was going on. And then when we scheduled to do the second podcast, I got some information sent over. I think a thing you had written about sort of what the last couple of years had been like and that dip and then sort of coming back and, you know, having a big tune now and being revitalized and all that. And I kind of was taken aback because I just had no idea. To me, it was like, oh, Ray's just out there. You were releasing a bunch of music. I was like, I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah. It's been a very interesting roller coaster kind of emotions and just feelings and just shit going down constantly. I feel like, if we go all the way back, like I had originally joined up and had started kind of getting momentum and buzz from like 2016, 2017. I started playing shows and things were going well. In 2018, I did this tour that was like, it did fine for what it was. I don't think I should have been doing it, but you know, it was just kind of something I was told that, hey, this is what you should be doing. So right. I don't know any better. I'm also like, I was like, I don't know, when I first joined, I was like 19 and I didn't have anybody around me prior to like tell me what the good and bad to do.
Yeah, of course, man. You never know.
I think
until
started
start. And sorry, I'm going to stop you a couple times in this just to like dig into a couple things. The tour that you're talking about, that first early tour, what was that like? Was that like just you by yourself out on the road headlining?
Yeah. So the one in 2018 was like my first, it was like a headline run called No Emotion Allowed. And it was me. And for most of the dates, we had my friend Chandler, who was kind of part-time DJing at the time because he's an actor. His name's Chandler Riggs. He was known from Carl on The Walking Dead.
Yeah. No, I met him a couple times.
Yeah. So he was getting really into like future bass and like DJing and producing music at that point. So we had put him on a bunch of the dates. So like he was at most of them with me. But it was mostly, I think, a flying separate situation because I think he was like a Delta. He was a Delta kid and I was American Airlines. Right. So I was like, all right, I'll see you at the venue. But it was cool because like I had already played a bunch of shows. Like I had done support dates a lot with like Boombox Cartel and Kill the Noise and Cruella at that point and Borgore and Getter. So I had done a bunch like at that of just like, you know, flying around. So I guess that wasn't new. It was more just like, okay, well now I'm doing my own shows. Okay, this is cool. And it did fine. I don't remember exactly if it did like good. I think it did fine.
But like people showed up to a certain extent. Yeah,
people were there. Yeah, we had maybe like two shows that like sold out. They're all like small cap venues, and they were cool. It was fun.
Yeah.
And things were like still on like the upward trajectory. It was going well. Things were working out nicely. But things kind of in 2019, the next year, they just started it just didn't work because it was a kind of a situation where I felt that at the time, I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this because I'm not here to like throw shade to absolutely anybody. As much as I think that it's a two-way street, right? With management. I have to be able to bring forth something for them to work with,
right?
But they also have to be able to come up with stuff as well to provide as well. And it's a two-way street, you know, it shouldn't be 50-50. So I need to take some sort of responsibility of like being like, or accountability being like, okay, I should have been like, wait, I don't want to do this, or like maybe this doesn't make sense, or like stuff like that. But I just didn't know any better at that time. And I'm trusting people that I've been with for years since I was a teenager to like handle and like guide me in the right direction. And I had felt that like my last team didn't have like proper sight on that.
Yeah.
And
or at least that they didn't see you the way that you saw yourself, right? Like,
yeah,
it was like different visions for the project. It was
definitely different visions for it. And also like I was pressured to do a tour that I did not want to do in a situation, in a time period that didn't also make sense. They wanted me to do it in the summer during festival season, which I feel like some people do tours during festival season. For any of you that are listening that don't know, some people definitely do it, and they can do it because they sell a lot of tickets. But for the most part, if you're like a mid-tier act like me, you shouldn't be running like your own tour in the summer. You want to do it in the spring or the fall, and then you like play the festivals around it.
Right.
Like this was routed incorrectly. This was put together, in my opinion, poorly. And honestly, like some of these shows weren't even with like these reputable, event throwers and promoters. Some of these were promoters that, and this is not their fault, but like it was, my team, my management side, they were like, let's go after where the money is versus who's actually throwing the proper shows.
Yeah.
So these shows didn't do well. A lot of these shows were failures, like big failures. Not only that, I had one festival in 2019 that I played. I will say there's two if you count LED Anniversary. I feel like that's not a full-on festival. It's kind of like a branded themed event, you know, from LED. So if we count that, that's two. But if we're talking festivals with multiple stages and like a multiple day situation, I had one. And it was a fun time, but it wasn't based around EDM. It was a jam band festival. I had a great time there though. No shade to that whatsoever. I think it was a great time. But when you look at the trajectory of like, I had done a couple more festivals in 2017, 2018, and then 2019, I have one festival and I do this tour that I was pressured into doing that I didn't think was the right decision at the time to do it at that moment. It didn't make any sense. I was like, this doesn't feel right. And I had mentioned, I'm like, I don't think this, like, I don't want to do this. Like, or I had at least brought up concerns, not say I don't want to do this completely. And it's just like, no, you got to do this. This is the right move. Like, this is it. And I'm like, okay. So things start just falling apart one by one. The tour flops.
Yeah. I just, again, to pause on that for a second, I think it can be super confusing and kind of alienating too, when you're out there on the road and you had at least a semi-successful run of shows before that, and you're kind of used to a certain level of thing. And then all of a sudden, one after another, you just show up and there's like nobody in the room, and you're playing to like, these tiny crowds, which is always an awkward vibe. And it's all of it is fixable in a way, but I think that just kind of enhances the confusion of it, of like, this was working and now it's not, and I didn't really change what I'm doing. So what happened?
Exactly. And it felt it was very demotivating too, because it's a situation where it's like, I played here last year. Why are there less people now?
Right.
And, there's definitely there's factors that go into it. The fact that we did it around festival season when people are using their money to buy tickets for festivals. It's when we do it where it doesn't really make sense, like maybe like billing wise. Like there's so many like politics that go behind it. Like this didn't make sense. And I kind of felt like I was constantly in a situation where I was just doing things that I'm like, okay, well, I'm told that this is what's supposed to happen, so I'm just gonna run with it. Because I just didn't know any better to like put like my own head first and be like, wait, because a lot of artists like there's artists that are very hands-on, and I consider myself very hands-on, but then I still I'm influenced by people that I trust.
Of course.
And I feel like it's that trust was well placed in the beginning. And I think that towards the end, I think that it just wasn't, I wasn't a priority. And I think that, I don't know, it just started becoming a situation of like, these people are not gunning for me. They're not championing me. They don't see me as I have value. And I was putting out songs on the release side where like these songs weren't like, so if you're an aspiring producer, or you're just a person that is listening to music and you're just here to listen, hello. There's things like there's singles and there's EP cuts, right? So like if you have like a song that you make, if you talk to your team about it and you talk to your friends, you can tell if this song is strong enough that it's like a single. This song can stand on its own and you can have it as a standalone single or as a single as part of an EP, or there's like EP cuts or album cuts, which are basically like, it's a good song, but maybe it doesn't have a strong top line or strong vocal, or there's nothing super, elevating about the track that's like, okay, this can just live on as a package. It's not something that you put out standalone.
Yeah,
because
different
it won't do
track
as well.
draws people in, and then they discovered that second one later,
Yeah, so it's like I was putting out those like type B songs, right? I wasn't putting out top notch like Ray Volpe music. I was putting out stuff that was like, yeah, this is cool, but it's like I should have been putting out and releasing these as part of EPs. I shouldn't have been doing, I was kind of dancing around, jumping around too much between heavy and melodic, because it's something I've always done. Even back when we had first talked, I've always done heavy and melodic, but I think I was dipping into melodic too much at one point and going too melodic without having like enough of like heavy influence in it for it to make sense for the listeners. It was a lot of just bad decisions, and no one was there to like kind of either help guide me to not do that. It was just kind of like, this is what you're doing. All right, cool.
Well, I mean, how did you feel at the time doing that? Because were you just following what you wanted to do, or were you?
Yeah, and I thought it was fine because like no one's telling me otherwise, and I never had any guidance. Is the whole thing. It was never like. And it's not like I'm not the type of person that's like, okay, look, it's my way or the highway. I need to do this shit the way I want to do it. Like, fuck you. It's more of like, I mean, I definitely want to do it my way, but like, hey, like, if you don't think this is a good idea, I need to know.
Sure.
Or like, there was just never any guidance, there was never any, oh, like, I don't think you should like strategically, it doesn't make sense to do this, and then this. You should do it in this order and then this way. There was never any of that.
Right.
And I think there's all of those things kind of culminated into like a situation where, like I said, like the shows weren't coming in as much. The festivals, I only had the one. The streams weren't coming in, and I wasn't getting as many opportunities. And 2019 was genuinely the low point of my career.
Well, it can be tough to feel, because earlier you said, I felt like I wasn't a priority. And I think that anybody who sticks around this business long enough is going to know that feeling at one point or another. And I think for you, we were talking how this was like your first go around on the ride still. And I think that not being a priority thing, it's a hard lesson to learn, man, because when you start off with a team and you're just building and there's hype and energy behind what you're doing and everyone's excited about it, right? Because there is that energy. And then when that wave crests, that's when you kind of find out who's really going to be with you for the long haul. Because it's even people, it's a weird thing, man. It's something, I mean, I've dealt with a ton, and everyone deals with at a certain point, that at a certain point, you kind of have to accept that, like, there's very few real friends in the business who will stay with you in a business sense, even when things are slower. And then there's a lot of people who will be great friends when everything's going well. And to me, that's not even like the fake friends thing that people complain about, but it's just one of the realities of the business that, like, if you've got a lot going on, a lot of people are going to kind of be drawn into that orbit. But it can be stark, man. Like when things slow down, how few people are left around.
Exactly. And that's why I also I think I have 3 categories of like, there's like real friends, and then you have fake friends or whatever. But I have this middle ground. I call them part-time friends. Yeah. Where it's like they mean well, but they're definitely only kind of around when it's like somewhat convenient, or it's kind of like a situation where it's like, you might say like, oh, I like them, but you're not really going out. They're not coming like to the birthday party, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's definitely like that middle section as well.
Yeah. You're not going to see them at Chuck E. Cheese. No way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not inviting them to Chuck E. Cheese whatsoever. I feel like I do want to like kind of add to the low point situation of 2019, because I have to just dance around the way I talk about it, because there's things that make this worse.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to like, I don't want to start shit, That's the thing. No.
But yeah, we don't have to start anything, but I think,
I think something I want to be clear to is that, like, aside from all those things, is that behind the scenes, my manager at that time, there were bridges being burned, and that heavily affected me.
Yeah.
Where,
By the way, I know kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we could definitely discuss more.
Yeah, we can talk about
pod.
that off the pod. I mean, for everybody listening, I think you summed it up pretty good. It's just there was some shit going on with your manager at the time that didn't have anything to do with you, that affected, the way people looked at you because of who you were working with.
Yeah, it's who you're associated around. And I ended up just kind of all culminated to the point of literally 2 days before. So my girlfriend, Jess, Dimmock shut down 2 days before this, or 2 days after this. And my shows were canceled like 3 days after this happened. It was that like second week of March or something, 2020. I get a phone call and it's basically just, hey, the project is dead. Like, I can't work with this anymore. Like, you need to start a new project or we're not working with you anymore. And I came back with the most logical thing I could think of, which was like, okay, if I do this, and this is where I think this is where it kind of gets into like, this is kind of fucked up situation on right. What the hell is, if I do this, I need to continue with Ray Volpe to make money with shows to put into the new project.
Right.
And I was told no. So I was expected to start a new project from scratch, cut off Ray Volpe immediately, and then not. It's like, well, then what do I do to like, how do I make money to put into this new project from scratch?
So let me ask you, when you got that call, was it a surprise or was it something that when he started talking, you were like, I know what you're going to say?
It was half surprise, half not, because like 6 months prior, the topic of me rebranding and like starting a new name and stuff like that came up. And I was like, no, not happening.
Yeah.
Not happening. And then they're like, okay. And then it kind of came up again, like, oh, this is a little about this. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. I don't want to do it. And then they're like, okay. And then the third time was when it was like, you don't really have a choice. So I was like, fuck. Okay. Like, it was basically just kind of like, no, I'm not going to do it. I believe that there's still life in the project. I didn't really think that like as much though. When you look at like the year that I had prior in all of 2019, I'm like, all right, things are not looking good. And I had only really started to feel that in really early 2020. Because throughout 2019, I'm like clueless. I'm like very like ignorance is bliss. It's like, oh, well, I'm just doing my best and nothing's working out here. But like, if you look at the stuff I'm posting on social media, it's stuff that doesn't matter. It's pointless, miscellaneous posts that like aren't engaging. I'm putting out music that's not strong enough. I'm not playing in the shows I'm supposed to be playing. Like everything was just falling apart. And I was just like, what's going on, guys? And I wasn't being like taken care of by like the people around me to like make better decisions and stuff. And when it came to a situation of like, yeah, the project's dead, I was like, no, it's not. I don't think so. So I parted ways, and 2 days later, everything shut down.
Yeah. Pandemic starts.
Everything shut down.
Yeah. I mean, which must have felt crazy at the time.
Dude, it was ridiculous. The one thing that came out of it was though, the same day that all went down, I was with, you know Safe Haven? He does graphic design.
No, I don't think so.
So he does a lot of, he used to do creative design for a lot of artists. He does a lot of graphic design work, and he has a clothing brand and stuff. And he just worked with like a bunch of names in the industry. He's a cool dude. I've known him for a long time, and I was with him, and he's very, very close with Blank, JP.
Sure.
And so he's known him for years. And I was with him when it happened. I'm like fucking crying. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And he's like, dude, you should hit up Pat. Like that's Blank's manager. Right. Like, dude's like, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? Blank's like definitely killed it this year. So I got his number and I texted him, and he was like, yeah, we could definitely talk about it. Funny enough, he had a dream like months prior that he was managing me randomly. And we had only met one. I met him once in Australia, because he's from Australia, right. My manager, Pat. He lives in LA, but I had met him like years prior at an engagement party for the guy who runs the shows in Australia. So like went there when I was touring, and I met him very briefly.
Right.
But I didn't. It was kind of like I don't remember. So the fact that he's like, yeah, I actually dreamed that I had managed you. It was like, it literally felt like fate.
That's kind of wild, man. Do you believe in that kind of thing? Like, actually?
No, but now I kind of do.
Yeah, that's one of those stories that makes you wonder, man, because that is such a crazy, of all the people, all the random DJs he could have had a dream about, you know?
It's really weird, right?
It's very strange. It's very strange.
It's very strange.
That's a wild story, man. And so, I mean, you guys are talking in a way. Do you think the pandemic, maybe a silver lining of it was that's some time where you don't have to worry about missing out on stuff or being passed by, like extra time to kind of figure out what the next step is?
Yeah, we honestly, because obviously there's so many, like the pandemic was awful for everybody, and that's just obvious. That's why I don't want to like dip too much into like the effects of like that, because everyone knows that it fucking sucked. And I don't want to turn it into something about that. It was awful. But what we did do is I think a lot of people in EDM took a break, and a lot of people use that as time to chill. That's when I linked up with Pat, and that's when my girlfriend Jess started really getting involved. Because at that point she was like, I can't let you ruin your career anymore. You're like, she's like, I need to jump in here and like save you. So it was a situation of just her and Pat. Like we were like, let's just take advantage of this. We start posting, all in the brain of Jess, just like the best social media content that she had come up with for like just funny videos. I start doing YouTube. I start doing funny like TikToks and Reels and stuff like that. I guess before Reels was a thing, just like funny Instagram content. Yeah. Just so that way it's like, hey, you're not going to forget that like I exist basically like during this time. And then I started just making better music. Let's talk about that for
a second. Before we get to the music, let's talk, because I'm curious, the social media thing, because I saw you had written that in the little blurb I was sent too, of how that kind of helped you like get back in the groove, was like being more active on social media and taking the business side of that a little more seriously. How do you? Oh,
absolutely.
Because you're a very charismatic guy. I mean, you're a funny dude. I think obviously, of course, you're capable of making funny videos at any time. Is it something you enjoy? Because I think for a lot of artists, it feels like a chore to have to do that. You know what I mean? I
know there's definitely like a lot of that. Like I see tweets constantly where it's like, I shouldn't have to be on social media and stuff like that, which I have a very controversial take on that, where I think that like people need to like kind of shut the fuck up.
Talk about it.
I don't know.
I want to hear more.
Okay, look, social media is not going to go away ever. Like some people think that like TikTok's a fad. Like that's like running the music industry. TikTok's not going away.
Yeah.
And like social media is not going away. And I understand that like I would love a world as well. I would love a world where it's like I just need to work on music and not have to worry about anything else. But we just don't live in that world anymore. And social media is so prevalent that you need to just you need to adapt. You need to be on there. You need to be doing that. So that's what like my girlfriend kind of beat into my head, was like, you need to do this. I was like, all right. Like I do find it to be a chore because sometimes I'm just not in the mood,
right?
But it's not something I hate. I love like when I post something funny and everyone thinks it's funny and I'm like laughing with them and it's something cool and I'm proud of the thing that we made together. Like I think that's a great feeling and I think it's fun to do. Just sometimes it's a chore just in the literal sense of like physically getting up and doing it versus the idea of doing it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm never the guy that's like, I don't want to like make a funny thing. It's just more like, I don't want to get up from my chair right now. It's more laziness than anything.
Yeah. So it kind of fits your personality, I think, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. That's interesting too, man. Because the resistance to it. I mean, I'm one of those people who hates doing it just because it's not. I don't know. I don't know exactly why I hate it, to be honest. But it's more just I kind of resent having to do it. And I feel like it's interesting because on one hand, I agree with you totally that it is the reality and that sort of railing against it is kind of pointless. Like in general, I feel like complaining about shit like that in our careers is not that people shouldn't do it if they want to do it, but I don't think it like helps to do it that much. But then on the other hand, I feel like for the people who don't just want to do it all the time or aren't comfortable doing it all the time, whatever it may be, like adding more mystique to it where they're not posting all the time. And then when they do, it's some big event. And it's, I don't know.
I think definitely there's definitely artists that can get away with not like grabbing social media by the balls. It's like, I think when you think of the term artist, there's just more than one job that comes with that versus like being a music producer.
Sure.
You know, because like when you're a music producer, maybe you're not playing shows. Maybe you're like, maybe you just make hip hop beats for people and stuff. And you're just in studio sessions and stuff like that, which is sick. And then maybe if you're an artist, like you're playing shows, you're doing interviews, doing podcasts, like there's just more that comes with it. It's something I guess you're signing up for, whether or not you realize that you're signing up for it.
Yeah.
But I'm also coming from a situation where I'm very sociable though too. So like I understand for some people they have social anxiety. It's hard, but like I can't fully relate to that as well.
Well, for sure. Yeah. And I think maybe as we're kind of zeroing in on this here, I think it's like what you're doing and the content you're putting out there, it's also authentic to you, right? Because I think we know a lot of people, I'm not going to name names, people who are very active on social media, but it's all kind of, you watch it and you're like, well, this isn't really who you are. Like there's nothing like real in this. This is kind of
like just performative or fake.
Yeah. That sort of thing. And so that's another thing, as long as I feel like a lot of this is like dispensing advice to artists who may be listening. And it's like, that's another thing too, where to me, yes, you do need to engage at a certain point, but it's not just engaging for the sake of engaging. Like you got to figure out your perspective on it. You got to figure out what you want out of it and how you want to do it. Like just getting on there and posting a bunch of stuff that you think fits in with the kind of stuff that's being posted right now. To me, that's a way to not only hate your life, but also to like not get anything done,
Exactly. Which is, I would say, similar to what I was doing in 2019, where I was just posting photos on Instagram every day that didn't matter. And they got no engagement, no one cared. Cause it's like, I'm just posting stuff that doesn't really matter. There's someone that like posts like good social media, cool content with cool creative behind it is like someone like, Knock2 or ISOXO, where they're posting like really cool shit. And it's like very on brand for them. Like ISO with this hard summer announcement was like him in this cool jumpsuit, and he's like has like the paint thing that you put the flyers on walls, and it's like, and it says it's like a design of like, oh, he's playing hard summer. Like that's sick, and it works for the style that he's doing, and it's something that's like, this is really cool. This is like a really interesting way to announce this versus just posting up a flyer, and it fits into something that he likes because he's obviously very creative and has a very artistic mind. So it's something like that, It's like that's sick.
So what is it for you then? Like, you became a little more active and a little more, I guess, like focused with what you were doing. Like, what is it? Are there themes to what you're doing now? Like, what makes it feel right to you?
I think it's because I think for me, I still have a combination of serious and funny, where I do have moments that I'm being funny, but then when it comes to announcing music and stuff, it's usually somewhat serious. But we do have, so things we locked down really tight on the branding of Ray Volpe, which is before. I was always a nickname that was given in a vocal tag by this rapper named Kynamite. It was called Volpetron 9000. He said it in a studio one day, and then it stuck.
Yeah.
And we never did anything with it, but then we're like, well, what if we do something with it? Like, why don't we just capitalize on the Volpetron thing? It's a robot, So everything, we started branding around like this thing when the first EP during the pandemic, it was World Domination, where it's like the robot Volpetron taking over. So it's like, I don't know. Sometimes it depends on like the day you ask me. Sometimes Volpetron is me. Sometimes it's its own entity. It just kind of depends, honestly.
Right.
But
it's a character it's like people can get invested in. And,
exactly. Yeah. And it's not like it's like gimmicky, but it's not overly gimmicky at the same time,
Right.
So, because it's not overly cartoonish. It's just, so it's like a nice middle ground.
Well, it's like, it's silly, but you're silly, like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we just went full force on the Volpetron robot. And so everything has to do with that. Like there's like Rise of the Volpetron. We have a new EP coming out soon called Legend of the Volpetron. And when is this going to air?
I think pretty soon, actually. I think it's probably next week.
Got you. Then, the tour is about to announce or is announced by now.
Yeah. We'll make sure whatever's out there, we'll push it. But yeah,
for sure. But like, it's all like branded around like the Volpetron robot now. And so like, we just kind of went full force into that. So like for like this Laserbeam song, which we'll just jump to that for half a second before we talk about it more later, is like the pre-release for that is like a video of me where I'm in front of like a cave and I'm like, yo, like check this out. And you turn around and then it's the Volpetron robot in a cave. And it's like it lights up and it's like, what the fuck's going on? And like it goes to 3D, but it's a very seamless transition. So it's like working that into like my personal life. It's like, okay, wait, Ray's in real life with this Volpetron robot now. So it's like, it's just working that in different ways.
Right. Yeah. I think it's smart. Like it's almost like a recurring character on a show that's just this thing that pops up that eventually people just kind of get used to seeing it there. It's a smart thing to have something that just keeps popping up like that, where, you know, maybe not everybody engages with it or like understands what it is at the start, but you see it long enough and it kind of just starts to look normal for anybody who likes what you do. Yeah,
you just associate it. You're like, oh, Ray Volpe, he's got the Volpetron robot, you know, in some way, shape, or form, he's around.
Yeah. This is cool, man. Yeah. It's very rare on this podcast I get to do like a deep dive into like really how people build these kind of ideas. I don't know. I don't know if anyone, I don't know who's interested in hearing this, but I'm very interested in talking about this because it's usually like what I'm doing is, you know, more of like a timeline summary thing. It's fun to like dig into these ideas.
No, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to look at just jumping in with these socials. Like it was, the whole mindset was like, when it's music, how do we incorporate the Volpetron? And then when it was fun content, it was, how do we just stay like on top of people's minds?
Right.
Because the thing is if you're not like that active, they're just not going to remember, you know, like, cause it's other people are popping up on the feed every day.
Okay. So
like,
let me flip that idea. Is that stressful? Is there some added anxiety once you're like, sure. I got to keep doing this. I can't fall off.
Oh, 100%. It's stressful. But it's like worth it. Cause it's kind of like, oh, fuck yeah. All right. We figured out something cool, you know? And usually it's me having like a mental breakdown and then my girlfriend coming up with a good idea and then I like chill out and then we do it.
Right.
There's definitely a lot of stress that goes behind it. It's not easy by any means, but that's why I think some people do complain or like don't want to do it because it's not a simple thing.
Yeah.
But I guess that's where the topic of like, are you like willing to do it or not? Because like, here's the thing. Making music is always and will be fun for me. And being an artist will always be fun for me. And it's a passion that I'm very grateful has turned into a full-time job. But that's what it is it's a job.
Yeah.
So there's things that you don't like about it. You know, like you could love working at Starbucks making coffees. Maybe you love making specialty coffees and lattes and things like that. But then you don't fucking like going to the back and stocking stuff. I don't know what they do. I've never had a job at Starbucks.
I've never been in a Starbucks.
Yeah. I don't drink coffee actually. So like I literally, but like, you know, I guarantee they hate going to the back though and stocking because it's like, maybe it's like tedious and time consuming.
No,
but it's like something that comes with it.
I get your point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, there's just stuff that comes with the job. So there's like, it's not always going to be easy basically, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true, man. And I think maybe my perspective on what you're saying there is like, if you're going to do it, make sure that you're doing it 100%. Like anything you choose to do in this career, make sure that you're doing it 100% and putting all of your effort into it. Because nothing in this career is easy. Even if you love making music, you still have to sit there in the studio for 12 hours to make something you're not sure is good or not, you know, like, it's,
and you might have just spent all that time and it like, you think it's sick and then you send it to your friends and they're like, yeah, it's cool. And you're like, what do you mean? It's just cool. Like, why is it the most
wait, let's talk about that though. Cause you were saying that, you know, 2019, compared to now, you felt like your music wasn't as good either. Or that you just like, it wasn't as focused enough, that kind of thing.
It definitely wasn't focused enough. It wasn't.
What do you mean though? Because to me, this is another thing where I felt kind of ignorant. Like I should have kept up with you more because I was listening to everything you were putting out. I was just looking at all your tunes that I have on my computer here. And, you know, for me, it's a steady stream of like, great. Like I didn't notice the difference as much.
So I guess that's like where that's where Jess came in heavily, because coming from like a producer perspective, it's like, yeah, these are fire songs. Like, cool. I like it. It's fun. But then you have to think about like the marketing side of it, right? Where it's like, is this something that like is going to stand on its own and pull in like numbers, or is it going to get a lot of plays at shows? Like, is it going to like, is it something that's going to help kind of progress you, or is this just a fire track? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I feel like I was making a lot of just fire tracks that weren't like pushing me anywhere or getting me anywhere. You know, like I made cool songs, but maybe like not everyone was playing them out. There were tracks like Save Me, which I did really well that year in terms of like where I was at in terms of stream numbers, because it was very heavy and melodic and it made sense to do it as a single. It was a strong song, had a vocal that was strong and catchy on it.
Yeah.
But then I put out a song like Break It Down, which is fire and it's like a heavy banger, but there's nothing like really catchy about it, nothing that stands out about it. And it's not like every DJ was playing it out. No one was playing it out. In fact, I don't think a single person played it out except for me. So same thing actually goes with the Save Me track. But the thing is, at least that one had some melodic elements that helped it on the streaming side.
Right.
For at least at that point, it did well for what it was.
Yeah. But that's the thing too. I mean, with that kind of stuff, like you can strategize to a certain point, but once it's out there, you're not.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, you can make a song hoping that like a big festival banger and that, you know, you picture every DJ playing, but some of them just don't catch on for whatever reason. Yeah. And same with the streaming side too. It's at a certain point.
It's not, it's completely like out of your control.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about it. I like using the metaphor of like, it's, you know, it's your kids and you have your kids and then you send them off into the world and then you don't know they grow up and they do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah, no, it's that makes complete sense. I think another kind of portion or another part of that too is like, we weren't like, so, okay, for any other aspiring producers or just general listeners, when you submit music to release it, a lot of upcoming producers, I know that they know because a lot of them use DistroKid, right? A lot of people use DistroKid.
Yeah, like independent, self-releasing, all that.
Which is cool. Or TuneCore. Like they're all great. There's no problem with them. Choose whichever one you want. They're literally, the differences come down to like the user interface. They're all nearly the same.
Yeah.
Slight differences. At least the public ones that anyone can sign up for. You can submit the song and then like 2 or 3 days later, your song is on Spotify. There you go. You did it. Except there's so much stuff that you're missing by not preparing and having like a plan. So like in 2019, those releases, we had no plans. Like we just put out the track. It was like a situation of like, all right, it's like 2 weeks before or a week before I'm gonna put it in. You always want your songs 3 to 4, 5 weeks ahead, depending on which distribution you're asking, you know. 5 weeks ahead is like, that's like ideal, you know? So that way there's time for things to get pitched and stuff. But at that point, people on DistroKid, I don't know if they have access to pitching and stuff, but you could definitely pitch your stuff on Spotify for artists and stuff. But we weren't really doing any of that. It was just like drive-through fast food, like music. And you know what I mean? It was just like, all right, put this track out.
When you say pitching, we're talking about pitching to playlists to like get placements and all that, just for anybody.
Yeah, so like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Amazon, they all have their own playlists that are curated by their own like dance departments. The same thing in hip hop and rock. They all have their own departments that they have these like tastemakers of people that are listening. They just listen to music and they're just, you know, fans of music and stuff. And they're respected for their taste. And they curate playlists like on Spotify. There's Dubstep Dawn, there's Bass Arcade on Apple Music. There's New and Dance, Dance XL. And they're like, okay, what's hot? What's cool right now? And then they curate and they update those playlists, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, depending.
Yep.
So you want, when you submit your music, the goal is to honestly get in those playlists because they help drive streams, which help drive and convert those streams into listeners to fans. And then they're like, oh, I'm gonna check out this other music. And then they'll buy your merch or they'll buy your tickets. So that's why like a lot of people are like, oh, I don't care. I just want to upload to SoundCloud. But it's like, it's so important to go on other platforms because there's so much more discoverability to like gain potential fans. So that's why like we weren't planning though. We didn't have the year planned. Like I didn't know. And when we did that podcast together, that was February 2019. I didn't know what the hell I was doing in May. I didn't know. Like,
well, and that's tough too, because the not having a plan, I've talked about this before too, the not having a plan thing, flying by the seat of your pants, when it can really bite you in the ass is when something actually hits and something goes well and you're not ready to follow it up. And, you know, all of a sudden you have more opportunities, but you're not able to capitalize because you kind of didn't have anything prepped. You didn't have anything ready. That can be really tough too.
That's, and you see that happen sometimes. So that's why, like, anytime people are asking me, like, what do you, like, advice for a starting producer? It's like, just have a fuck ton of music ready to go and then figure out like a plan. Just plan out your year, plan it out.
Yeah.
Just be consistent, honestly. But, yeah, we didn't plan anything out in 2019. So that's also, I think, a big thing too. is like compared to like 2020, like when the pandemic during there, like we planned it out. We knew what we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to do a merch drop, and then we were going to do like the EP. And then thankfully we had some remixes lined up. The buzz just started kind of coming back with all the social media presence, and just like, I would always posting like cool record box clips of like music that was unreleased that people really liked. And it just I actually started getting like the attention of like Millennium through just, I made a remix. He put out a song Nightlight, which was like his first single from his album. And I was like, this is cool. I remixed it the day it came out. I posted to Twitter like 2 days later, clip. He sent me the stems. It became official.
Yeah.
You know? We had followed each other previously, but like never talked. And like, it was just social media that like took over. And
And I mean, posting up. How do you feel in general about, I think that's something producers go back and forth on, as long as we're getting into the nitty gritty of stuff, is like the posting like whips and demos and things, like little clips of things you're working on. Because I think some people, are like, no, you're not going to hear it till it's like the final form. It's perfect, that kind of thing. And then other people are just firing shit off all the time.
I think it's sick to do it, because I think that for example, like during, I think maybe the pandemic, I don't remember exactly when, but like Papa Khan like took off through like initially through just tweeting, made this future rhythm song for future girlfriend or whatever, you know?
Right.
So like, I was like, that was just him just tweeting that.
Yeah.
You know,
true.
I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah. No, and you're right. I mean, yeah, social media definitely helped him out. There's no question. So, I mean, through the pandemic, you're making these plans. It seems like shit is coming together again. How was it getting back into the world?
It was cool because it like basically during 2021, the second half is when shows started coming back. And right before shows started coming back, we got linked up with my current booking agency, which is their name is Mint Talent. My agent Peter, he used to work at a previous agency somewhere else, and him and a bunch of other people left like a bunch of different of like the majors of the agencies, and they formed like a cool boutique agency. And he was very interested, and I was like, hell yeah, because this week I want. The thing is that my whole team, they're just like passionate people that are passionate about me, which I think is more power than like any big time thing has done for me in the past.
100%. And talking about that idea of, being a priority for somebody versus not being a priority for somebody. That's the big name agencies or the big name managers are always so shiny and alluring, but that's a 99 out of 100 times what you find if you're able to get on those rosters is that you're probably not the priority, or if you are, you won't be for long. And it's,
or it might take a while until you are. And like, and there's definitely cases where that does work very well for them, and that's great for them. But for me, it wasn't something that worked that much. And so, this team that I have now, like it worked out so well, where we came out of the gate at the second half of 2021 with like 6 or 9 festivals, I something like that. It was a lot.
Yeah,
it was a lot. I hit so many new places. I did Lost Lands at Bass Canyon for the first time. I did Spring Awakening, which is like more open format stuff, like more than just bass music, which I was stoked about because I love the idea of like, for me, I'm never going to be the guy that's like, don't call me a dubstep artist, because it's like, it's my whole discography. You know what I mean?
It'd be hard to get away with. Yeah.
It's like, there's heavy and melodic dubstep. So I'm like a bass music artist, but like, I want to be someone that's like on lineups that are like more than dubstep, So I want to do like, because my sets aren't like all dubstep. I go down to 130. I do some bass house. I even play like 2 tech house songs. I jump around, it's very open.
Even
fun.
On that first podcast we did, man, you were talking then about the idea of like doing live performances and incorporating like, just live aspects. I was trying to get you to sing live.
No, still not happening.
I think you should,
I'm gonna get scared, man. I'm gonna get scared.
No, but of course you're going to get scared, but I don't know, man. I'm not saying do it tomorrow, but I still feel, I don't know if you're still interested in the live performance idea at all, but I feel like at a certain point, because you can do both so well, like, in terms of like the melodic stuff and the heavy stuff. And there's plenty of examples of people who have kind of made that that hybrid thing work. I don't know. I'd like to see it. Just
no, I feel
selfishly.
you. I know this is just your fantasy that you're brewing for me.
Yeah, I had a dream about you, Ray. Everybody's having dreams about you. Okay.
I'm still open to doing something like some live stuff eventually. It's just a matter of like when. I feel like it'd probably be like if I do something that has production, like my headline tour coming up will be like, it's not going to be like a production tour, you know, like I don't got the money to be building crazy LED walls and stuff. But when I do have money to put into like production on a tour, then that's when we'll probably incorporate some cool stuff.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Maybe. Yeah.
I like it. And all of this, you know, talking about like getting a bunch of festivals and branching out a little bit, at least some of this was happening even before your song Laserbeam was really even going crazy, right?
Yeah. The like basically like COVID 2020 onward, there was like just an upward, we started just climbing that ladder again. And then it just kind of kept going faster and faster. Like things just started working because I had a team that cared, that gave a shit. We were all working together and collaborating on things and just doing the most, planning things out. So people just started paying attention, like naturally.
I just wanted to hammer that point because I think it's very easy to look at the narrative of what's going on with you and to just say, oh, well, he had a really big song, so now he's big again. When the reality
it's like,
is
no,
that
things started working out, like coming out of the pandemic, things started working. I didn't have a big song like from that point. I had some songs that did well for me, but it was like a situation of just, I finally was getting, you know, a lot of just like buzz on social media that was really helpful. And then I started to finally get put on Excision shows and a lot of his lineups that helped kind of push me towards like a next level. And I started being on lineups and I was put on festivals and I was like, oh, this is sick. I've never played this many festivals before. This is like a dream come true.
Right.
So things were just kind of like upward. And then Laserbeam happened.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, for people who don't know, I assume a lot of people listening do, but there's probably some who don't. You know, you made this track Laserbeam. It was the most played song at EDC. And just had this sort of insane crossover to all these different DJs. You know, all these people were hearing it. The track was not out yet. This was all, you know, kind of just happening organically. Yeah, just an ID that people maybe didn't even know it was yours at the start. And the track just dropped, right? Like not that long ago.
We're shooting this on the 30th. It came out on the 24th, so just under a week.
Came out less than a week ago. Yeah. And it's crazy. I mean, because the hype for that has been months now, right?
Yeah. I made the track in November. I had put it up in like one Instagram video that like people were like, oh, cool track, but it didn't really matter. It started in February. It all starts at Thunderdome, Tacoma Dome, which I actually played that show as well with Excision. Like a month prior, I usually send songs to him through email. That's just the way that I just send it to him personally. And I was like, hey, here's a cool track. I feel like it'd be good for your laser production because he's one of the DJs that's known for crazy production in his sets. I was like, I think this song will be good for laser. It's just very tongue in cheek. Like it's called Laserbeam.
Right.
You know? Usually he hits me back. Usually he's like, yo, this is cool. Thanks. Like sick. You know, he didn't hit me back though. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't like it. And so at Thunderdome, I played Laserbeam. I opened with it actually during my set and it got like a really strong reaction as it was for that. I was like, oh, cool. People are hyped. This is cool. Like, that's cool. But maybe it's because it's the opening song. It's the first song of the set. You know, people are just hyped anyway.
Right.
And towards the end of the night, I go out to the crowd to watch. I always go out to the crowd to watch the beginning of Excision usually. And then I like chill on a balcony or stadium or like backstage or something. So I always like watching because these kids are crazy, the energy that they have.
Yeah.
So,
well, not to mention watching his set is like, I said to someone the other day, it's like just going to Disneyland or something. You know?
Literally. Yeah. So it's like never,
such a crazy experience.
And I've seen so many times, it doesn't get old. So I'm like, okay, this is fun. So we go out to like towards front of house and we're watching like first 15 minutes or so. And I think like 10 minutes in, I just start hearing the beginning. It just goes, bring out the lasers. And at this point, there haven't been lasers in the set either. So everyone, they hear the vocal, which is great because that means that the vocal was recorded legibly. You can hear it audibly. You can hear
what you're saying.
Everyone's bringing their phones out. I bring my phone out because I'm like, this is my song. You know, everyone else is like, oh, he's gonna have lasers. I think. The reaction when that drop hit was just insane. it was just, I've never experienced like the amount of like just extreme loud for like just noise from the fans before. Obviously it's not my set, but it was still like cool. It was insane because it's like, I do think obviously there's a huge portion of that because it's like, yeah, well, there's lasers, so they're freaking out, but the song that goes with it matters still too.
Oh, of course.
You know, it needs to, it has to complement each other. So people, they ate it up. And so the next day I posted about it and the video took off.
The post went crazy and people got super into it and all this hype. And so that song, man, from a musical perspective, I was thinking about that song, which is, it's a great song and it's a huge banger, obviously. But do you feel, was there something different about that song or something different about the way you made it? Because like we said, you're dropping bangers steadily. And when I heard that song initially, I was like, oh, Ray made another banger. Great tune. But, I certainly didn't know it was going to do what it did. Was it was there something different about that song or was it just kind of that magical, like right time, right place thing?
I think it was right time, right place. I think the only thing that's somewhat different about it is that it has a theme, right? Like there's a theme based around the track, which I thought was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to I was working on it and I made the drop. And once I had like the little, like right before the drop, I was like, okay, this is like a lasery song. So I came up with just bring out the lasers and I had my friend record it because it was Control Freak actually. My friend Control Freak, he recorded it for me because I hate recording the pre-drop stuff myself because I'm used to my own voice. I was like, can you like get like the thickest accent and go bring out the lasers? And he quickly did that for me. And so I threw it in and it just was like, all right, we have a song about lasers now. So that's the only different thing, but it wasn't like, I don't know. I thought the song was great. I didn't think this was going to happen by any means.
Well, and in sort of like in the context of what we've been talking about, when something unexpectedly good does happen, like what happens now? Because I'm sure nobody expected it to go as big as it did. And now that it has, like, you talked, obviously there's an EP coming, there's a tour coming. Are you looking at anything different in the aftermath of having this like massive song?
Yeah, the way that we do things it's gonna be a bit different, but that's about the best. That's like the only way I can kind of put it without saying too much.
Sure.
Like we definitely tentatively. We somewhat have like the next year like kind of planned out. Like we know what we want and what we're doing for the most part. And
does something like this break open your brain a little bit to be like, oh, actually, we could maybe even think bigger? Yeah,
it did. It gave us. I think it gave us more opportunities to do better things. It brought in some crazy shows and opportunities in music that I can't say that will be out hopefully soon, sometime soon. That I'm like really excited about. It basically just it just cracked the door open is really what it did. It busted it wide open for like a lot to happen now.
That's beautiful, man.
Creatively, everything. Yeah.
I love hearing that, man. It's a great story and it's just great to know that you're in a good place with all of it. Throughout this whole journey that we kind of ran through of the last couple of years, other than, meeting your amazing girlfriend and finding this new team, like, I guess what I'm asking is like, have you learned anything about taking care of yourself or keeping yourself in a good place that you're using these days?
The end of 2020 was like the low point of my personal life in terms of my mental health. Career was starting to really do well again because of all the buzz online stuff. But I had kind of reached a point where like I was realizing certain things about myself that I did not like and things about my past that I wasn't really processing prior to 2020 that I wasn't really processing about myself. Just some shit that like I felt like I never had time to process in my life. So I finally, like my girlfriend helped, she just pushed me to just get better and change. And she helped me get into therapy and was just by my side through everything. Like I owe her like my career wouldn't be around right now and my life would not be the same if it wasn't for her. So she literally changed my life in every single way for the better.
It's amazing. I think we even talked about the last time we were doing this. We talked about therapy, and I think both of us were like, yeah, I haven't done that, but I probably should.
Yeah, it's like I probably should do it, and it was the best decision too, because it helped me. I was able to just process a lot of stuff that way. I was able to just like start taking care of myself. I had started losing weight. I was like fucking 50 pounds heavier than I was now than when I did that last time. Good for you,
man. Good for you.
Like I started taking care of my physical health. Right now I'm stagnant. I lost like over 35-ish something pounds, but like I've been stuck there. Because it's just like food is around, you know? So
it's tough, easy. Man. It's tough. I don't know if we ever talked about this, but I used to be a lot heavier than I am now. I lost a bunch of weight.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it never exactly goes away, like, you know, because food's always around. And I still have the brain of a heavier person, you know?
Yeah, you're like, okay, let me just take this now.
Yeah.
Eat everything around me.
Yeah.
But I started taking care of my physical health. I started taking care of my mental health. And I think a big thing is the people that are around me. I cut out, there's a lot of people I feel like I don't talk to anymore or don't talk to as much anymore. And some of it is busyness, of course, but then there's some parts where I felt like there was a lot of toxic people in my life. There were a lot of toxic people around me. And I needed to not be around that, whether it was intended or not. Some people don't intend to be toxic, you know, some people just are because it's just the nature of some things. But you know, I had to just do everything I was best for myself.
Well, and that's the thing with people around you. Sometimes it's not even their fault or anything they're doing particularly. Yeah. Sometimes it's just like, look, like this, whatever we got in between us, whatever it's like when we hang out, like it's just not good for me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some people where I felt like they were not the best kind of person to be, like they weren't the best towards me. And I felt like it was very like, I don't like the way that they treat me, so I take them out of my life. Yeah. And there's some people where maybe like I have jealousy towards them or something like that. So I'm like, I need to like chill out because like I'm gonna start like resenting people. You know, it's just goes with it. Just various situations for various people. So I just kind of just pulled the plug on everything that was and even a tiny bit negative on me.
That's great, dude. I mean, I love hearing that. It's like this whole thing. And it seems like you're in a good place now. I mean, I'm sure there's like stresses and anxieties about like growing everything, but like, are you mentally?
I'm like stoked about Laserbeam, but I'm like stressed the fuck out for sure. You know what I mean? It's like, because things are kind of moving now, and I'm like, oh fuck,
don't fuck it up. Yeah.
So it's definitely stressed, but I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm more mentally like there, like in a good place than I've ever been. Still working on my physical goals. Yeah, I feel really good.
Man, it makes me happy to hear you say it, man. It's we don't ever talk, I guess, because we haven't talked since that last podcast. But I got a lot of love for you, man, and you know,
same goes to you, man. We don't talk as much as we should. We gotta catch up. I remember we talked somewhat recently on Twitter or something, which is I think why you had my new number.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. Like, sometime last year we were playing a little catch up. But I'm as bad as anybody else about staying in touch with people. But I genuinely, I would love to do that, man, because I do have a lot of love for you.
Dude, absolutely. Absolutely. Man. The same goes to you.
I love you, buddy. But this has been great. I mean, I think we caught up. Is there anything else? Anything else you're thinking about? Oh, I know what. Before we get out of here, we talked about this. I think from the first day I met you, even before we did the first podcast.
Oh, no. I knew.
When's the Ray Volpe podcast coming out, man?
I thought it was going to be the first thing that came out of your mouth. I was expecting the first thing that you said was, when's the podcast? And where's it at?
Now a bunch of other, for a while, I was one of the only ones who had a podcast. Now there's a few more. And I feel like we need the Ray Volpe perspective, man.
I think the problem is, there's two problems there. Is sometimes I'm too lazy and I don't think I can commit to doing it.
Yeah. It's a big commitment.
The other problem is I think there's a lot of shit that I want to say that I shouldn't say or can't say.
Yeah.
You know? So that's the other problem. Cause I think like generally speaking, I'm a nice person and I mean well, but I do think that there's some things that I'm like earlier, I was like, just shut up and post. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be like,
I mean, I'm also a nice dude, but I got plenty of anger and resentment, you know?
Yeah. I don't want too much of it leaking out of me, I think. So I'm more cautious to like I don't know if I should do that.
Yeah. No, that's
but that being said, it's starting this week. No.
Well, you're always welcome back on here, man. It doesn't have to be 3 more years before we do this again.
That's true. Yeah, we know it'll be less than. We can maybe make something work in like 7 this time.
Okay, good. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy just talking to you now from then. Like, I don't know. You grew up a little bit, man.
Oh, that's good. Like, how so? Because I would like to know. Because I guess to me, it's like I feel like I'm the same.
Yeah, I think it's more just like when we did the first one, and I was listening back to it again today. It was like, I don't know. It was talking to. I think you've just been out in the world more, maybe. Like I think a lot of it was just like making little jokes and kind of like smoothing things over rather than like digging deep into the issues, which makes sense because you were younger and just hadn't had as much experience in the industry, you know, that kind of thing. So everything's kind of like fun and exciting. And that sort of
I also had anything bad happen to me yet, I think too.
Yeah, totally, so, man. It's
like I didn't have any like experiences that were like, oh, this fucking sucks. So I think that was also a big part for me too, is like I had to like learn a lot of shit. I've had to learn a lot, and I've learned a lot thanks to like my girlfriend and also my manager and my agent. I
mean, dude, you stick around long enough doing this and you're going to learn a lot whether you want to or not.
Yeah. I mean, at least I know how to route audio on a computer though. That's always good. At least I knew how to then.
That's right. You really would be surprised how few DJs I talk to know how to route the audio.
Dude, I met an artist and he didn't know how to convert something to an MP3, and I was like,
wow.
I was like, what?
That's the maybe the most pure artist I've ever heard of, where they're just like, no, I'll hire someone to convert my music to MP3.
I was like, what is going on?
Leave me.
Hey, yeah, they're literally like, I stay in the DAW, only the DAW.
That's incredible.
Insane.
Well, dude, this has been great, man. Anything else you want to get out there? Obviously, you know, I'm sure people are going to look out for the EP, for the tour, for everything.
The EP's in another like month or 2 from now. So that's coming up. The tour is announcing this week, or it's already announced, and get your tickets depending when this goes up. But
I mean, if you're listening to this in 2025, the tour happened years ago and you missed it.
Why weren't you there? Why weren't you there? Otherwise, we have some cool stuff happening. Have some remixes coming up as well, and just very, very, very excited for the future.
Fuck yeah.
Very excited.
I'm excited too, man. I'm ready to see what is next up for you. And man, it's just great to see everything that's happening right now, man. Makes me happy. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for having me back on. This was a great time.
Anytime, dude. I'll talk to you soon, man. Have a great rest of your day. All right, buddy. Take care. Right. Peace.
See ya.